It's Bend Your Ear with Ben Hartong.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Bend Your Ear. As always, I'm Ben Hartong, and I can't believe we're already to episode 5. I've got a very special guest today, so stick around for that. But first, the way we always begin the show, it's time for Rooney's Corner.
Hello.
Hello, Rooney, welcome back.
Hello, Ben. Welcome back.
Wait, but you're on my show, right?
Yes, but you're on my segment, meaning you are my guest.
Okay, well, do you have anything planned today?
Nope.
Okay, well, luckily I do. Right here, I have a bowl of marshmallows. And what we're going to do is take turns putting them into our mouths like the game Chubby Bunny. But instead of saying Chubby Bunny, we will be saying Marty Brennaman, since he is today's special guest. How about you go first?
Gladly. Marty Brennaman.
Marty Brennaman.
Marty Brennaman.
Marty Brennaman. Sure, I get it.
Marty Brennaman.
Marty Brennaman.
Marty Brennaman.
Marty Brennaman.
Marty Brennaman.
I think we're done here.
I would.
All right. Okay, get that out of there. Okay. Do you want to introduce today's special guest?
Introducing former Reds Hall of Fame radio announcer Marty Brennaman.
Hello, thanks for being here.
It's all my pleasure, pal. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, so we all know you as the former Reds radio play-by-play announcer. You first got the job back in 1974, and you stuck with it until your retirement in 2019. What was your initial reaction when you first got the job, and did you know you were going to be doing the same thing for 45 years?
Two were guys who were already broadcasting big league baseball. I was coming up out of the minor leagues. And so I got the job, but never in my wildest dreams did I ever feel like 46 years later, I'd be retiring from the same job that I got back in 1974. There are not too many broadcasters in the history of Major League Baseball that had 40 plus years as a play-by-play guy in Major League Ball, and all with the same team. So I think I'm one of 8 guys that have done that. And so I'm very much prideful of the fact that I was smart enough to hang around in Cincinnati after I got here in 1974. And despite opportunities to go elsewhere, I was smart enough to say, no, I'm happy where I am.
Yeah, so throughout your time with the Reds organizations, fans started to love you. They wore Marty t-shirts. More fans actually started listening to the radio. They bought all sorts of your memorabilia. So this is actually a 2-part question. First of all, when you first got the job, did you know you were going to be this famous? And second, what has been your favorite part of all this publicity?
Well, I certainly never dreamed that, as I said before, being around for 46 years in the same job and building up the kind of support that I realized I had. I replaced a very popular guy in Al Michaels. And Al, of course, went on to tremendous fame with the networks. He was here for only 3 years and then left to go to the San Francisco Giants. And he was liked here in Cincinnati. And after I got the job and heard what big shoes I had to fill, I was a little bit concerned about my ability to pull it off. But I was fortunate in being able to do that. And I've been overwhelmed over the years by the number of people that put themselves in my corner and were fans of listening to first myself and Joe Nuxall, and then in recent years, Jeff Brantley and myself. So I was thrilled by it. I don't think I ever let it go to my head. A lot of guys in this business become egomaniacs because they think that the game can't be played unless they're there, and that's wrong. I mean, the reason we're there is because of the game, not I'm the reason why the game is being played. That's not the way it works. So I've been very, very fortunate to have been accepted into this town as I was for over 4.5 decades.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, you were with Joe Nuxhall for 30 years. So your former partner, Joe Nuxhall, of course, we know him for being a former Reds pitcher, along with being your radio partner from the beginning of your career all the way until 2004. So now his death back in 2007 still saddens many to this day, and I'm sure it really hit hard with you and the fellow Reds community. So I want to ask you what it was like knowing him, not only as a coworker, but also as a friend.
Well, Joe and I became very close over the years. I think we really got close when I decided to take up the game of golf in 1995. And from that point on, Joe and I would play golf more often than not on a daily basis when the team was on the road playing all over the National League and into the American League when they played interleague baseball. And we played a lot of golf together. We had dinner together almost every night, either at the ballpark or if we were enjoying an off night on the road, we'd go to a restaurant and have dinner together. And we just developed an incredibly close relationship. We genuinely loved one another. And, for 31 years we were together. And that also is something I'm proud of because the only team that worked together doing big league baseball that long was Vin Scully and Jerry Doggett with the Los Angeles Dodgers. They were together for 31 years. Joe and I were together for 31 years. No other pair has ever gone that long on the radio working side by side. So we had an incredible relationship. It was such that we would get mail and it was addressed to Marty and Joe, Cincinnati, Ohio. No address, no nothing. They just knew where to send it. And when they got mail like that, they would send it down to the ballpark because they knew who it was going to and they knew where to send it without any specific address attached to the envelope.
Yeah, of course. And I know you guys were one of the most famous duos in baseball history. I feel like, you guys have brought such a legacy that you're such a famous duo. When you think I feel like in my mind, there's PB&J, there's Ketchup and Mustard, and then there's Marty and Joe.
Well, that's nice of you to say that, Ben. I appreciate that. I know a lot of people have essentially said the same thing, and it was just something special about the relationship. I used to kiddingly say that it all had to do with the fact that he was a left-hander and I was a left-hander, and left-handers are a little bit off-center. They're not exactly march to the beat of the same drum that right-handed people do. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that Joe and I got along so well together.
Yeah, so the other day I was listening to Behind the Mic with your son, Tom Brennaman, and I heard about your decision to retire last year and how you mentioned about how you truly believed that there was a life after baseball. So can you tell us a little bit more about your decision to retire and some of the things that influenced that decision?
Yeah, that's a good question. When Joe retired, Joe was physically unable to do a lot of the things that he had planned to do. And that made a tremendous impact upon me. I decided then that I was going to retire, one, on my own terms, and two, while I still felt like I was on top of my game. And I was able to fulfill that. A lot of people are forced to retire for whatever the reason. That was not the case with me. In fact, I know for a fact that had I chosen to continue on for years and years, as long as I was physically able to do it, that the team would welcome the fact that I wanted to stay on. But I felt that there were places I wanted to go and things that my wife Amanda and I wanted to do, and I wanted to do them while I was healthy. And knock on wood, and I'm doing that right now. I don't know too many 78-year-old guys that are any healthier than I am. And I walk 5 miles a day. I try to do the things that are necessary to maintain my health. And so there was a life after baseball for me. It's been a new chapter in my life. Vin Scully and I got to be fairly good friends in the years in which he did Dodgers baseball. Vin Scully's the best baseball broadcaster who ever lived. And he and I talked about it. And even after I announced that I was going to retire, especially last season, in the waning days of my last year, he would call me on the phone. And I think Ben was concerned that I was sold on the idea that I was going to retire. A lot of guys retire and then they realize after the fact that they made a mistake. And I never felt that I was going to look back on that decision regretfully, and I haven't. We've traveled as much as you can, given the fact that we're all living under the cloud of the coronavirus pandemic. But we've done some traveling, and we're due to travel again the end of this month, going into the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and traveling all over the place there and playing golf in a number of different places up there. So I have not missed the game at all. I've not missed being in the radio booth one bit. Now, I have missed the guys. I have missed Jeff Brantley and Tom Brennaman and Chris Welsh and Jim Day and Brian Giesenslaw and Sam LeCure and all of those guys. But missing those guys is not enough of a reason not to retire. So I stay in touch with them. If I'm home, I watch and or listen to as many games as I can because, hey, I'm still a fan. Even though I'm no longer broadcasting the game, Reds baseball is still in my blood. And so I pay attention to what the club is doing. But in terms of looking back on the decision I made in January of 2019, I've never regretted that decision. I made the right decision. I felt like it was the right decision then, and it's the right decision now, and we'll be looking down the road and into the future.
You know, yeah, when a lot of people do a profession like yours and they do it for 45 years, you know, could be difficult for some people to retire and kind of leave everything that they've been doing their entire lifetime. But, you know, for you, obviously, I hear you miss some of the people, you miss some of the things you've been doing, but you truly believe that there are other things that you can do with your life other than announcing baseball.
Well, you know, I can look back when Johnny Bench retired. And Bench, of course, is the greatest catcher in the history of baseball and is a Hall of Famer. And Johnny retired, and he never looked back, and he never regretted retiring. And I always looked upon him in that regard very positively because he was a man of great conviction. He had an incredible career, and he just felt like it was time to walk away. And there are guys that are broadcasting Major League Baseball now that probably will never retire because they don't have anything else in their life but baseball broadcasting. And I don't feel that way. I did not feel that way. I don't have the kind of ego that demands that I be in the spotlight all the time. I'm happy to fly under the radar right now. I'm happy to know that my name is not out there, and I'm good with that. I had a lot of that, and I was appreciative of the fact that I had that notoriety. But the fact that I don't have it now doesn't bother me one bit. I'm very, very happy in my own skin and very happy to be married to a woman like Amanda Brennaman who will not allow me to sit around on my butt and not do anything. She keeps me busy, and that's one of the things that you have to do when you retire if you want to stay active. And she certainly works toward that end all the time.
Yeah, of course. So when you speak of staying active, you mentioned this on Behind the Mic, and you also mentioned this earlier. You walk at least 5 miles a day. How do you think that impacts you both physically and mentally?
Well, I think it helps in both areas. I've done a lot of reading on that. I know how important exercise is. I was never a runner because I've known too many people that did, and they end up with bad knees and all kinds of leg problems. I walk at a reasonably brisk pace. I have a treadmill in the basement of our home, and I'm on that constantly. I've been on it twice today. I get my iPad, and I watch shows off of Netflix or Amazon Prime. I read a lot, and I think that's something that keeps your mind active. I've always been a voracious reader, primarily fiction, and I think that helps to keep your mind alert. And so I think a combination of those things has certainly allowed me to be healthy. I have no cholesterol problems. I have no blood pressure problems. And I think exercise helps in those areas. And hey, when you get to be my age, quite honestly, there's no guarantee no matter how healthy you might be. Actuaries in the insurance business will say, no matter how healthy you are, you could drop dead in the next 5 minutes. And I understand that. I'm full well aware that, you reach a point where no matter how healthy you are, your age skill can work against you. So I try to get as much out of life as I can. As I said before, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And I know that the walking, as much as I do, helps me. I play as much golf and I have this summer as much as I can. So I'm not one to sit around and do nothing. And again, I think it's helped to keep me younger than most guys my age.
Yeah, and it's one of the famous morals, live every day like it's your last. And, I see you doing that and you doing all the things that you love. You're living every day like you never know what could happen tomorrow. And really for any age, anybody, there is no guarantee to what life will bring next. So live every day like it's your last. Do the things you love, and that's something that's clearly very important to you.
Absolutely correct. No question about that at all.
Yeah. Okay, so back when you were announcing Reds baseball, you got to announce the 3 most recent Reds World Series championships in 1975, 1976, and 1990. What was it like calling some of the most famous games in Reds history, with the Big Red Machine in the 1970s and the Oakland sweep of 1990?
Well, it was, I had 3 World Series rings in the 46 years I was there. And in fact, all 3 of my World Series rings are down in the Reds Hall of Fame and Museum. I haven't worn them in a long time. I wear a Hall of Fame ring, which I got in 2000. And that's a ring that I wear. I look back with great memories to the 75 and 76 Big Red Machine teams with Rose and Morgan and Bench and Concepcion and Perez and Foster and Griffey and Geronimo and the so-called Grade 8. It is, without any question, I think, one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the history of baseball. And just to be able to work nightly broadcasting the great things that those teams were able to accomplish was an honor. In 75, of course, they beat the Red Sox in 7 games in the World Series. And then they came back in 76 and swept the New York Yankee team 4 straight. And then you fast forward to 1990. That's the most favorite team for me, the 90 Club, because it was a team that nobody gave a chance of doing anything. Certainly not winning their division, much less winning the World Series. They went into first place on opening night. They never vacated first place. They became, at that time, the first team ever to go wire to wire from day one. They never lost first place in the National League West, which is what they were in then. And it was a team led by a Hall of Famer and Barry Larkin. And, they had Eric Davis. They had a great rotation with Jose Rijo and Danny Jackson and Tom Browning. They had the Nasty Boys in the bullpen with Randy Myers and Rob Dibble and Norm Charlton and a great manager in Lou Piniella. So that team was my favorite team as I look back on that 90 Club. And then they go into the postseason. They beat a very good Pittsburgh club with Barry Bonds and Bobby Bonilla and Andy Van Slyke and very good pitching. They beat them in 6 games, and then they faced the Oakland Athletics, and people were talking about that team building a dynasty under Tony La Russa. They had Mark McGuire and Jose Canseco and that bunch, and the Reds just beat them 4 straight. So I have great memories of being a broadcaster for 3 world championship teams. And the one thing about memories, Ben, they can't ever take them away from you, pal. You got them for all time.
No, they can't. And, you mentioned 1990 Reds. I am actually wearing the jersey of the one and only Barry Larkin right now.
Barry Larkin would be very, very happy that you got that jersey on.
Yes, I know. Definitely something I wear with pride.
I don't blame you, pal.
Yeah. All right, so another very famous game you called was Hank Aaron's 714th home run, tying Babe Ruth for the all-time record for home runs. So, this was your first regular season game you had ever called, and yet in the first inning, history is made. What was it like for you being really, really early on in your career, getting to see such a historic event happen right in front of your eyes?
Well, I happened to be at the right. I was the right guy at the right time. My timing was impeccable. The Braves came in to open that '74 season, and there was a lot of conversation about Aaron and whether or not he was even going to play, because the Braves were, and I understand this, they wanted him to go into Atlanta. The Braves were opening the season in Cincinnati, and then they were going to go right home and take on the LA Dodgers at Old Fulton County Stadium. And the commissioner stepped in and said, no, this deals with the integrity of the game of baseball. So he told the Braves he's got to play in 2 games. So they put him in the lineup reluctantly in game 1. And I think there were 55,000 people at Riverfront Stadium that day. And I'd never seen that many people in any sporting venue in my life. I was overwhelmed by the crowd. And I was, nobody needed to tell me that Aaron was sitting on 713 home runs, or one away from tying Babe Ruth's all-time record. And he did it in the very first inning. 4 batters into my career, Aaron hit a 3-run home run off Jack Billingham to tie Babe Ruth's record. And when the inning finally ended, Joe Nuxall looked me in the eye and said, I can't believe it. He said, what do you do for an encore? And I said, I don't know. I was very, very fortunate to be a part of history in the first inning of the very first regular season game that I ever did. And what was interesting was last season when the Reds went into Atlanta to play the Braves, and I never crossed my mind, but a guy I'd known forever came up and he said, you know what's unique about this night? And I said, no. He said, there are 2 people that were in the ballpark 46 years ago when Henry Aaron tied Babe Ruth's record. And I thought about it for a moment, and then I realized, he said, you were there and Henry Aaron was there. And there's nobody else here in Atlanta that was there that night. And that made a tremendous impression upon me, because as it happened, Aaron was at the ballpark that night in Atlanta when the Reds were playing there.
Did you get to meet Henry Aaron that night?
I did not see him, unfortunately, that night, but I had been together with Henry a number of times over the years. So he and I had been together for a number of times, and we chatted periodically over the years. But unfortunately, that night, I was not even aware that he was in the ballpark until someone told me that.
Wow, that is incredible. Of course, it's a milestone for him, and then for you, it's just the beginning of your career. Incredible how 2 things like that happen to collide.
And after he hit the home run to tie the record, he played started one more game with 2 remaining in the series. And the Braves, I think he batted twice or 3 times in the game he played, but then they got him out of the lineup. And then they went home to play the Dodgers. And in the first game of their home schedule on a Friday night, he hit a home run off Al Downing, a left-hander with the Dodgers, and that broke the all-time home run record. So he tied it in Cincinnati, and he broke it, as he should have, in Atlanta in front of his home fans.
Yeah, that's incredible.
All right, so aside from Hank Aaron, a few other famous games you have called were Tom Seaver's no-hitter, Pete Rose's 4,192nd hit, Tom Browning's perfect game, and Ken Griffey Jr.'s 500th and 600th home runs. And that's just to name a few. So again, what's it like knowing that you are the voice behind many of these historical events?
Well, I was thrilled, and it was a case more than anything of watching great players play on this team over a period of a lot of years. The no-hitter that Seaver had was against the St. Louis Cardinals. I thought that it would have been very sad for Tom to go into the Hall of Fame one day, having never pitched a no-hitter. I think he had 5 one-hitters, and I think 2 or 3 of them were no-hitters that were broken up in the 9th inning. So he came very, very close a number of times to pitching a no-hitter while he was with the New York Mets, and he finally got his no-hitter in a Cincinnati uniform. And in Browning's case, it's a perfect game. They don't fall off of trees every day. And to watch him retire 27 batters in a row against the Dodgers was an unparalleled thrill. And then the Pete Rose hit. It was a hit that set a record that will never be broken, because I don't think there are any players playing the game of Major League Baseball today, or those who will in the future, will ever play long enough to challenge Pete's record. I don't think that'll happen. And then Griffey's 500th and 600th home runs. That was a big thrill. His 500th came in St. Louis. And ironically, it came on Father's Day when his dad and mom were there and members of his family were there. And he hit that home run off Matt Morris and the Cardinals in St. Louis. But one of my favorite calls was the home run that Jay Bruce hit in 2010 against the Astros in the bottom of the ninth inning at Great American Ballpark in September, that clinched the division title for them and assured them of going into the postseason. I was really happy with the way that call went. Happy still for Jay Bruce, who was really one of the nice guys that's ever put on a Reds uniform. So I've been blessed to be around some great teams. I think I broadcast 5 or 6 no-hitters, including the Seaver no-hitter and the Browning perfect game in the years that I've been around. So I've been blessed to have been around some great moments and was on the microphone at the time in which it happened.
Yeah, that's great. And when you mentioned Jay Bruce, I actually got to meet Jay Bruce when I was really little. He was a super nice guy. And then when you mentioned Tom Browning, he actually spoke at an ATLL baseball opening day event, and I actually got to meet him. It was a surreal moment. It was great. He was one of the nicest people I've ever met, and it was just really awesome, knowing I'm right in front of this person who's thrown no hitters and in a perfect game. It's an incredible feeling.
Yeah, Tom Browning is really one of the nicest guys that I've ever been associated with, and for him to do it was a bigger thrill, because he was a guy who was going to make his home in Cincinnati when he retired, and he's been retired obviously for a lot of years now, but he stayed here in Cincinnati. So Tom Browning is like me. He came from the outside and loved this town so much he decided to make his home. And I see Tom periodically and have tremendous respect for him as a person. He's really a good guy.
Yeah. So as you mentioned earlier, you were inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame back in the year 2000. That was 19 years before your eventual retirement. So we know a Hall of Fame induction is a very big deal, and most players and MLB personnel are actually inducted after their retirements. Yet you were inducted while still in the midst of your career. Now, I know to me that really says something about the legacy you bring behind, but I'm wondering, what does that mean to you for the National Baseball Hall of Fame to recognize your legacy almost 20 years before you would retire?
Well, I was thrilled to death. But back then I had people that were in my corner that felt I should be there at the time, and I had no knowledge of that until afterwards. And there were 3 especially, Ben Scully and Jack Buck and Ernie Harwell. All 3 are Hall of Famers in their own right, and they thought enough of my work that they really went to bat for me. And I found this out long after I had gotten the call and went into the Hall of Fame. And I was at the time, and this was important to me because of the great respect and admiration I have for Ben Scully. He was the youngest broadcaster to go into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And when I went into the broadcasters wing in 2000, I was the second youngest. I think that is something that probably people have broken that since then. But at the time, I was the second youngest to get the Frick Award after Scully when I went in 2000. And the thing that made it especially memorable was the fact that it was an all Reds weekend, because with me going into the broadcasters wing, Tony Perez went in as a player, and Sparky Anderson went in as a manager, and I went in as a broadcaster. So those things don't happen very often, where you have a Hall of Fame weekend in Cooperstown and everybody who goes in. I say everybody. There was one exception to that, Carlton Fisk, who was a great catcher with the Boston Red Sox. he also went in that year. But the three of the four people that went in were all former Reds, or in my case, a current Red, and that made it really special.
Yeah, so now aside from being one of the best radio announcers in sports history, you are very well known for your famous slogan, "And this one belongs to the Reds." Now, I'm sure many have asked you this question before, but where did you get that idea?
I don't know. I wish I could give you a good answer. All I know is that when I look back upon it, it was not anything that was premeditated or planned. It was spontaneous. It happened on a night in which I think Dave Concepcion got a hit in the bottom of the ninth inning at Riverfront, or the bottom of an extra inning to win the game. And I just blurted it out. I had not planned on saying it. It just came out. And when I was driving back to Anderson Township that night home, I thought, you know what, it might be a good thing to use every time the Reds won a game. Never having any idea that I would say it as much as I did in 74 and 75 and 76. The only mistake I made, Ben, was the fact that I didn't get it copyrighted. And there have people who have made a lot of money off that phrase, putting them on T-shirts and things such as that. I should have been smart enough to realize that that might be something that people would remember long after I was gone. But if I have a legacy, that hopefully will be one that people will remember long after I'm gone.
Yeah, so it was just this one spontaneous moment ended up being your famous catchphrase and one of the things you're known for.
Yep, and that's fine. I'm good for that. I don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah. Okay, so now to the current baseball season. As we know, the pandemic has canceled most of the MLB regular season, so teams are currently playing in a shortened 60-game schedule. Now, more recently, we have seen games get canceled due to outbreaks among some teams, specifically the Marlins and the Cardinals. Now, how do you think Major League Baseball is handling this season as far as player safety goes?
Well, they've had to make up rules and change rules and implement new rules, and they've been doing it on the fly because and I understand this. So they're dealing with something that they've never had to deal with before. They don't know, what the pattern would be about who would be affected, who would not be affected, how bad the affection would be, as it's turned out, according to the older you get, or if you have any underlying health problems, it can be really, really serious, as opposed to if you're a young person. And so they've gotten a lot of bad publicity about the way this whole thing has gone down. And I don't think that they are deserving of all the criticism that they've gotten. I think they're deserving of some of it, but not all of it. They're in a situation right now. You mentioned the Cardinals. The Marlins obviously have gotten healthy, and they played surprisingly well. I don't know what they're going to do about St. Louis. St. Louis, as we speak, they have their series canceled the first part of this week with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I don't believe that they'll play this weekend. And so the number of cancellations are mounting up. They've not played, as we speak tonight, since the 29th of July. They played a grand total of 5 games. And I simply can't imagine how they're going to make up the games that the Cardinals have lost. So it's been a tough situation for everybody. I said when they finally started that I don't think they'll see game number 60. And I'm still not convinced that they will. Outside of a couple of clubs, we have been relatively blessed with no widespread infection. I marvel at what's happened with the NBA because they've had very, very little infection. They're living in a bubble down in Disney World, and they apparently are, except for a couple of bumps in the road, when guys have done some things they shouldn't have done. The NBA has been relatively virus-free, which amazes me.
Yeah.
Guys that are constantly in contact with each other all the time. They're exchanging perspiration all the time, but they are doing what they are supposed to do. And I think that in and of itself has put them in a very enviable position. Baseball has had some lapses. Most recently, Zach Plesac with the Cleveland Indians went out this past weekend in Chicago with family and friends. And when the club found that out, they immediately sent him back to Cleveland. He upset his teammates. He upset the Indians administration. You simply can't do that. And he apologized profusely. But the fact of the matter is he did it, and he put a lot of other people in jeopardy in the event that he tested positive, which I don't think he did. But you can't take that risk. You've got to do what the experts tell you to do, and all that does is enhance your chances of seeing this season come to a 60-game end at the end of September. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed that they're able to get back. They're able to play without any interruption that would cancel whatever was left of the season. But I think that's still somewhat up in the air.
Yeah, so, a statement made from Rob Manfred last month was saying if the players, don't handle this as well as they should be, the league might have to shut down again. Now, obviously, big majority of the situation is in the MLB administration and the commissioner's hands, but really a lot of it's up to the players about how they handle this.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's be honest about this whole thing, Ben. They are involved in a very, very unique season. 60 games really smacks of a lack of credibility. They've done some things to try and enhance the interest. And I think the mere fact that it's 60 games creates a level of interest that might not otherwise have been there. But they've implemented some things that they're doing, put the runner at second base with nobody out if a game goes to extra innings for both teams, playing 7 innings in a doubleheader situation. These are things that may not ever happen again. On the other hand, they may be things that they find a tremendous amount of interest in that they may implement down the road. But the bottom line is that if they can get through the season and get through the postseason, that baseball will be $900 million richer because of the postseason money that would be due them from the networks that cover Major League Baseball. And obviously, these teams have been hemorrhaging money because they can't play in front of fans. And so they're trying to get to the finish line where they can cash in on almost $1 billion in rights fees. And I can certainly understand that.
Yeah. All right. Now, finally, I want to talk about this year's Reds baseball team. We have seen some new entries over the offseason, like Mike Moustakas, Nick Castellanos, and Shogo Akiyama, just to name a few. So now as of when we are recording this, the Reds are currently 7-9. That is third place in the National League Central. Now, have you noticed any players in particular that you really think could be potential franchise players, or any players in particular you've been watching this season?
Well, I've been very impressed with Castellanos. What he's done offensively has been very impressive, more so because nobody seemingly is hitting on this ball club but him. But people trying to figure out why this season has gone the way it has. I think it's very simple. 1, the bullpen has been terrible. 2, the defense has not been very good. And 3, this team has not hit. Now, I don't think for 1 minute that the offensive problems will continue. I think this team will hit. But I felt when the season began, and I said it the day before the Reds opened the season, that the one area that most concerned me was their bullpen. And I'm as wrong as much as I'm right, but I was right about that. This bullpen has not been good. I think the bullpen is probably the most important aspect of every club when your season is only 60 games long. And so this team has to figure out a way to get more productivity out of its bullpen. They've got to play better defense, and I think the offense will take care of itself. They cannot afford to go through another spell like they went through a week or so ago and expect to be able to come back. They're on a pace right now to win 28 games and lose 32. That's not going to get them into the postseason. So they've got to figure out a way to gain some positive momentum. They're in a stretch right now where they're going to be playing Kansas City and Pittsburgh, teams that, quite honestly, from a talent perspective, they should beat. And these are teams that they've got to start to get well on. They cannot afford to stumble like they did against the Detroit Tigers when the season opened. They've got to start to win, and they got to start to win right now.
Yeah, I feel like the bullpen has always been something we've lacked for the past, 5 or so years. Now that's something I feel like we should definitely do over the off season is maybe spend some more money instead of getting new hitters, which because we've seen some new entries like Castellanos and Akiyama and Moustakis. Maybe we could spend some more money on some bullpen pitchers so we can really improve our pitching so that we can start to win more games.
Well, I think an improved bullpen would certainly help you. Although I worry sometimes about this as a one-season shot for this club because when the season ends, Castellanos can opt out of his contract. He has an option to leave if he wants to. Trevor Bauer obviously will become a free agent. He can leave. And those things concern me because you're not going to have the same team. Also, Anthony DeSclafani can become a free agent at the end of the year. So unless these teams can figure out how to keep these players around, this could be a team that on paper, from a talent perspective, will not nearly be as good 1 year from now as we thought this team was going to be. So for a lot of reasons, this team's got to start playing the way everybody thought they were capable of playing, and it's got to begin this week.
Yeah. All right, so before I let you go, I always like to end the show with some sort of game or a fun thing to do with my guests. So for this episode, I decided to do a little bit of a stadium showdown. So throughout your time as a Reds radio announcer, you have traveled to many different ballparks across the country. So I'm sure there's got to be a few that really stand out to you. So what I've done is I've compiled a list of categories, and you have to tell me which stadium is the best in that particular category.
Okay, that's fine. We'll do it.
All right. So the first category I have is which stadium, in your opinion, has the best food?
The best food?
Yes.
I would say probably the ballpark in San Francisco does. I think that ballpark's food better reflects the city that a team is in more so than any other ballpark in baseball. So I would say the ballpark in San Francisco.
So, Oracle Park wins best food.
Yes.
Okay. Next one. Which stadium do you think has the best attractions?
Wow. Gosh, I don't know. That's a good question. All of them have great attractions, especially all the parks that have been built since Camden Yards opened in Baltimore back in the early 90s. I would have to think, having not been in it, but only because of its newness, I would say the new ballpark in Arlington, Texas, where the Rangers play.
Okay.
You know what? I think none of them have any better attractions than our ballpark does.
Really?
I think, yes, indeed. I don't think that. I think that our people, led by Phil Castellini, who I think, from a marketing perspective, is a genius. They have never stopped improving the ballpark from year to year. They've added new features every year, and it's truly a family atmosphere because baseball found out a number of years ago that putting a good ball club on the field won't truly get it done anymore, that you've got to have other attractions that appeal to all ages of your family. And I think our people have done about as good a job as anybody in Major League Baseball. So I'd probably give the nod to, among all the parks that I've been to, I'd probably give the nod to our ballpark.
Great. So you're going with Great American as the best attractions right here in Cincinnati. All right. Great.
Yeah.
All right. Which stadium do you think has the best design?
I would probably say Fenway Park in Boston. It's one of the two old ballparks, so to speak, the other being Wrigley Field in Chicago. That park was designed even before I was born. So, it's been around for a long time. And they have little nooks and crannies in the outfield where if the ball hits a certain way, it bounces a way that you might not expect it. I'm a big fan of the design of Fenway. They've got the green monster in left field, which is relatively close to home plate. But if you don't get any loft to the ball, it's going to be off the wall rather than being a home run. which really confounds a lot of hitters who go into that park for the first time. It's in a great neighborhood. I would say probably Fenway Park in Boston.
Yeah, so I actually knew you were going to say that, and for me, I would actually probably do the same. Even though I haven't been to many ballparks, I have studied some of the designs in the ballparks, and I feel like Fenway, with the green monster in left field, it's something that no other stadium has. So it kind of gives that uniqueness to that stadium.
Absolutely right. That's very well put. Correct.
All right. Which stadium has the best fans?
The St. Louis Cardinals have the best fans.
Really?
Yes. For me, they do. I mean, a lot of people might say the Cubs. I think the Cardinals have the greatest fans in baseball. I mean, but people that would disagree with me would say, well, it's easy to be a great fan when you have winning teams every year. And I don't dispute that. But now the most knowledgeable fans about the way the game should be played reside right here in Cincinnati. I think the people that have followed the club over the years have tremendous knowledge of the history of this franchise, going back to the 1869 Red Stockings. But in terms of the people that show up night after night after night, I would have to say the St. Louis Cardinal fans are the best fans in baseball.
Okay, and we know the St. Louis Cardinals, one of our division rivals. So you're saying they have the best fans in all of Major League Baseball?
Oh, I think so, without any question.
Okay, all right. Last question I have: which stadium has the best traditions?
Oh, yes, some great questions, Ben. I don't know. That's a tough question. I know that Dodger Stadium, has been around since the early 60s, and it looks like it was built last night. They've done such a great job of keeping it up. And every time I go into that ballpark, I naturally think about all the great players that performed there, and even before that at Ebbets Field in Brooklyn when they left there and came west to L.A. in the late 50s. No club has a greater tradition than our team does. I mean, after all, it was the first professional team in 1869, led by Harry and George Wright. The 150th anniversary they celebrated last year. So as far as tradition is concerned, nobody, our club, this franchise here would take a back seat to no one because of the history involved in first the Red Stockings and then for all these years the Reds. So I'd have to say the Reds have the greatest tradition of any team in baseball.
Of course, right here in Cincinnati, you're saying Great American has the best traditions and the best attractions. Yeah, I mean, you can't compete with the oldest club in baseball history.
I don't think you can. I agree with that as far as tradition is concerned. No question.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on my show. Of course, you are one of the greatest announcers in baseball history. I truly want to thank you so much for coming on my show, and I wish you the best.
Ben, it has been all my pleasure, young man. You're a very talented guy, and I would say if you stay after it, you got a great future in this profession if this is what you want to do. And I tell you what, sometime down the road when we have some time, in the next couple of months, I want you and your mom, and you can bring your dad along if you want to, and see our baseball room. We've got a very impressive baseball room with a lot of bobbleheads and a lot of wall space is completely covered with things that were important to me in my career, and I'd love for you to come over one day and take a look at it.
Of course. I'm sure there's nothing more impressive than Marty's very own baseball room.
Well, I want you to see it, and I would be honored if you one day came over and spent some time down here.
Thank you. I would be honored as well. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Huge thanks to Hall of Fame broadcaster Marty Brennaman for being a part of today's broadcast. Until next time, I'm Ben Hartong. Thanks for letting me bend your ear. Cue the outro.